Don't Go In There by Veronika, Martenova, Charles. And this is from a series called Spooky Tales. There's quite a few of them. I think you'll like them. Don't go in there. They always start with 3 kids talking. Cat sitting part 1. Guess what? I said to Leon and Marcus. I got a job this week, babysitting the cats next door. How do you do that? Leon asked. I just feed them and clean out their litter box, I said. Can we come too? Marcus asked. Be at my place at 5, I told them. And at 5 o'clock, Marcus, Leon, and I went to my neighbor's house. Where are the cats? Leon asked. Outside. They'll come when they smell their dinner, I said. I opened 3 cans of tuna and put it in 3 bowls, and 2 cats came in through the screen door. Meet Mandy and Fritz, I said. We have to wait for Blur. Can we look around the house? Leon asked and Marcus asked. Sure. Just don't go into that room upstairs, I said. How come? Marcus asked. My neighbor just said, don't go in there. Maybe we would get trapped like the girl in a story I knew, I said. Tell us that story, said Leon. Tasha and the Goblin. Here's the story. Once there was a girl called Tasha who lived in a village with her grandparents. One day, Tasha's friends went to pick berries in the forest. May I go too? Tasha asked her grandma and grandpa. You may, but be careful, they said. There's a goblin's house in the woods. Don't go in there. In the forest, Tasha and her friends began to pick berries, and Tasha went from bush to bush, deeper and deeper into the woods. And when she looked up, she was all alone. How will I get back home? Tasha worried. She walked around till she came to a little house. The door was open. She went inside. Hello, little one, said a goblin as he locked the door. I'm not letting you leave. From now on, you will heat my stove and cook my meals. Tasha cried and cried, but she did as the goblin said, and one day Tasha told the goblin, I would like to bake some sweets and take them to my grandparents. Could I go for just one day? No, said the goblin, I will take them myself. That's what Tasha really wanted. So she baked some pies and put them in a big wooden box. Then she said to the goblin, take these to my grandparents, but don't eat any on the way. I will be watching you. Now, go and see if it might rain. When the goblin stepped outside, Tasha climbed into the box and covered herself with pie. The goblin returned, picked up the box, and left for the village, and soon he grew tired. What a heavy box, he said. I'll sit down and eat some pies and lighten my load. Tasha called out, I'm watching you. Don't eat anything from the box. Take it to my grandparents. The goblin was amazed. Such good eyes, she thought. She has, he thought. She can still see me even from there. And he kept walking toward the village. Dogs started to bark in every yard. The goblin got scared, dropped the box, and ran back into the woods. Tasha's grandparents came out and saw the box on the road. What's in there, they wondered, and they opened it and saw Tasha and the pies. Everyone was happy to see each other again. Leon, what do you think is in the upstairs room, I asked. Maybe it's a secret room, said Leon. Your neighbor goes there and does things she doesn't want anyone to see. I know a story about that. Listen. Salt and Pepper, Leon's story. Late one night, Leon was coming home from a party, and he was tired and sleepy and took the wrong fork in the road, and he ended up in a swamp. Leroy couldn't find his way out, but he saw a light among the trees, and it was coming from a lone cabin. Leroy went into it and knocked. An old woman answered the door. I'm lost, Leroy said. May I stay the night? Come in, the woman said, and she let him inside. Even though she was very old, she moved very quickly. You can sleep in the kitchen, the woman said, but don't go in there. And she pointed to another room. I've got work to do and don't want to be disturbed. Leroy lay down, but the noise from that room kept him awake. There was stomping, shuffling. What could she be doing in there? Leroy got up and looked through the keyhole into the other room. The woman was doing a wild dance, kicking her feet and shaking her body, and all the time she mumbled to herself, "Too late for dinner, too early for breakfast, but tomorrow I'll turn him into a tasty lunch." And as the old woman spun around, her skin slipped off like a dress. And underneath was a creature that looked like a giant leopard. It jumped through the open window and into the night. Leroy was scared. If he escaped now, the leopard would catch him, and if he stayed, he'd be eaten. How would he save himself? Leroy grabbed salt and pepper shakers from the kitchen shelf, and he ran into the other room and shook them over the skin that had been left on the floor, and then he hid in the kitchen closet. At dawn, Leroy heard screams coming from that room, and he crept outside and peeked in through a window. The creature, now half woman, half leopard, was rolling on the ground, tearing at its own skin. Here was his chance to get away. Leroy ran through the swamp to the fork in the road and made his way back home. "It was pretty smart of Leroy to use the salt and pepper," I said. "Once I scraped my knee and went swimming in the ocean, my knee felt like it was on fire because of the salty water." "I heard a story about a place you shouldn't go to also," Marcus said. "But first, Leon, stop that banging." I'm not doing anything," Leon said. "Well, what's that noise?" Marcus asked. "What noise? Just tell us the story," Leon and I said. "Wait till Lester comes," Marcus's story. Everyone knew the house by the road was haunted. Alvin passed by it each Sunday as he went to visit his aunt. And once when Alvin was on his way, the sky suddenly grew dark. A big storm was coming. It started to rain. Alvin took shelter in the house by the road. On one of the inside doors, somebody had painted a sign that said, "Don't go in there." "Why?" Alvin wondered, and he peeked in. There was furniture and a fireplace with firewood beside it. Alvin was wet and cold, and he went in and lit a warm fire. Then he took a book from a shelf, sat down, and read. Outside, lightning flashed and rain pounded the windows. After a while, Alvin looked up, and a little gray cat was sitting by the fireplace. Where did she come from? Alvin wondered. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and another cat, big and black, came inside, and the little gray cat looked at her. "What should we do with him?" she asked. "Wait till Lester comes," the black cat answered. Alvin pretended not to hear them, and he kept on reading, and then the door creaked in, and another cat as big as a dog came inside. "What should we do with him?" asked the little gray cat. "Wait till Lester comes," answered the huge cat. Well, by now Alvin was scared, but pretended not to see them. One more time, the door creaked, and this time a gigantic cat, big as a cow, came in. It stopped and stared at Alvin. "Should we do it now?" the little gray cat asked. Alvin didn't wait for an answer. He dropped the book and ran out into the raging storm. Cat Sitting Part 2. There was a loud bang. "Did you hear that?" asked Marcus. "I told you they were banging up. It came from upstairs," said Leon. "Probably from that room. Let's go see what happened." I shook my head. "I don't think we should go in there." "Maybe we should just look from the doorway," said Leon. So we went upstairs and looked in, and the room was dark and filled with old furniture and boxes. The window was broken. Something moved inside the room. Bang! A chair fell over. Whoosh! Something black and hairy jumped on us. "Ah!" yelled Leon. "Leopard!" screamed Marcus, and the creature jumped over the railing and vanished downstairs, and I closed the door fast. We just stood there and didn't move. Finally, I tiptoed downstairs, and in the kitchen, Blur was licking the last bit of tuna from the bowl. "Where did you come from?" I asked, and then it hit me. "You climbed a tree and went in through the broken window, didn't you?" Leon and Marcus came in next. "Let me introduce the leopard, otherwise known as Blur," I said. "I knew it was him all along," said Leon. "Me too," said Marcus. There was another bang upstairs. "There go the other two. That must be their playroom." "Let's go home," I said, and we locked the door on the porch, and Mandy, Fritz, and Blur were sleeping peacefully.